Welcome to the Steering Change Podcast, navigating through the commercial transportation industry in Alberta and beyond, powered by the Alberta Motor Transport Association. Here's your host, Kelsey Hipkin.
Greetings, listeners of Steering Change. We have had a little bit of everything weather-wise lately as we hit the middle of winter: snow, ice, wind, sun, and the ever-present Alberta Chinook. As constant as the changing weather is the sight of snowplows on our highways and roadways. As a kid, I was taught the adage, amber and red, snowplowed ahead. Things have changed in that regard in the last couple of years, but one thing remains the same: the commitment and dedication snowplow operators have in working to clear our way. Today we're joined in studio with Warren Stasiuk, Regional Safety Manager, Volker Stevin. As well, we have AMTA's Robert Destree, Senior Instructor, Driver Development, and a former snowplow driver himself. Warren, Rob, welcome.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to come and discuss some of the issues that we have.
Awesome. And while we have you, Warren, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a 33-year veteran of snow plowing or being in the industry, and so I work back still with the government of Alberta when it was still snow plowing under there, and then went private and left that, didn't want to go into the private sector, decided to do something different, truck driving, hauling grain and stuff like that. So then I got married, and I wanted to get back home rather than always being out on the road and stuff like that. So I actually went back into the private sector, which was really good, and they work really hard. And I always wanted to get into the safety role, so I ended up moving to southern Alberta and started working with Volker Stevin Highways, and I've been here now for 23 years, working in 12 years of safety now.
Amazing. Thank you, Warren. And Mr. Destree, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so as previous listeners of the podcast will know, I've been here for about 6 years now, and I am Senior Instructor Driver Development. I run our simulator, do the podcast, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't have Warren's deep background with road maintenance, but I did do a season of plow operations / road maintenance. So there's going to be some stories, I'm sure, that will echo with both of us, because when you're dealing with traffic, there's a lot of things that are fairly consistent with the other vehicles, and then there's some other stuff that just comes out of left field, like I don't even know how that happened. So I can see Absolutely. Warren's nodding his head on that one.
Thank you both. Ready for a joke drop? Let's plow into some questions.
That's a good one.
Warren, we're going to start with an easy one. When we are talking snowplows, it's not as simple as just a large vehicle with a blade on it. Can you break down the different vehicles yourself and your team utilize? And Rob, feel free to throw any you've worked with in the past.
Yeah, so we have several different types. So we have obviously just the plow and the truck together. Then we have a plow and wing. We also have, they can be on either side, the right or on the left side. We also have what's called a tow plow, which you've started to see a lot more of that happening on the P3s, like that's the ring roads in around the cities. But in our Lethbridge contract, actually, we started, we got 4 of them. So for
you have 4 tow plows now?
Yeah, for the 5 total, with 1 in Northeast Anthony Henday and 4 down in the Lethbridge contract, which is a brand new contract. So yeah, so they get used. They move a lot of snow, and they also can be used as like washing stuff to wash stuff as well. So
because you guys use the fluid on the back for weight, correct?
So the fluid on the back is for weight, but mainly it's for when we will spray anti-icing.
So you do a brine, or you do the beet juice?
We do the brine.
Can we explain a brine and a beet juice for our listeners out there?
Sure. So brine is just salt and water mixed together, and there's a certain level in which or percentage that you put in. And then the beet juice, there's a different mixture which adds different chemicals in, which for colder weather, because salt brine can only be used up to about a -14 or -15, somewhere around there.
Oh, okay.
And then it kind of just gels at that point. So the more you the other stuff you use, magnesium chloride, stuff like that, and that doesn't freeze near as fast, and we can use it to put down on the road.
Yeah, so we would pre-brine stuff like bridge decks and overpasses, that kind of thing, before a snow event came along. So the truck would go dump a water brine mix. I think ours was 22% brine, and then just hose down certain areas. And then when the snow does land on it, it's a little bit easier to scrape up.
So, Warren, when you're anticipating a snow event, what does your team's day kind of look like leading up to that?
So what they're generally, so our guys are on, there's always somebody on. You can say it's 24 hours a day throughout October, down in through April. There's always somebody out there. So we have guys doing road inspections. So if a snow event is coming, those guys are out there ready for it, and then they'll dispatch the trucks out at that point. So, but what leads up to it ultimately is they check their trucks over. You know, obviously it's the law. They do their pre and post trip inspections, and they go around and they ensure that truck is ready to go. You know, there's times that those trucks are not ready to go, and they cannot go out on the road until repaired. So we do have a group of dedicated mechanics, technicians that know our trucks well, and they make sure that these things are ready to go on a moment's notice because they're needed out there.
Yeah, we were doing 2 12-hour shifts, so we were 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. So the truck didn't have a whole lot of downtime in between because you're in for 7, safety meeting, you're maybe out on the road 7:30, 7:45, and 10, 11 hours you're pushing snow. But the fun times is when you had like 10 snowflakes, but you're out anyways because that's what the contract called for. You get to drive around high blading for 12 hours, 11 hours, and go back to the shop and dump your sand off.
Well, that's the thing. Like a lot of times we'll get complaints that trucks are out there not doing anything, or they're sanding dry pavement, where our guys are very well trained to recognize what needs to. And a lot of times you don't see it. It might look dry, but it's actually got black ice on top of it. So it's they're out there for a reason. They're not just sanding for just for something to do to get rid of their sand. But yeah, that's kind of the case. We want to make sure that that the roads are safe out there for everybody.
Or maybe you're running a bit more salt in your sand mix and you're just hitting the bridge decks again. Because you said like maybe they're icing up, or you get that patch underneath a bridge deck that the Chinook has rolled through, but there's a strip of ice still hiding in that shade.
Absolutely.
And you're just going to go lay some stuff down on it.
You know, I just come back from BC, and we have a company out there as well, and like they run what's called they run 2-inch snowpack, like in the further north. So they actually maintain snowpack. So
Oh, wow.
when they don't actually take it down to pavement, it actually is they're allowed that 2 inches of snowpack, and if it gets icy, they'll sand it with straight sand, or they'll go and they'll run a grader on it if it gets rough or it rained or whatever. So there's a lot of good things to do it with snowpack, but ultimately around here you'll never ever see that because it has to be bare pavement, and that's as per our contracts as well.
So let's deep dive into the numbers a little bit. In 2021, the Alberta government started engaging with the public on roadside safety for workers. From stats released by the government in a Roadside Worker Safety Campaign Communications Toolkit, according to Alberta's Workers' Compensation Board, that's the WCB, between 2014 and 2018, there were 2,229 injuries involving workers being struck by a vehicle. As well, between March 2018 and March 2021, there were approximately 130 collisions involving snowplows contracted by Transportation and Economic Corridors. And during the winter of 2022-23, there were 37 collisions involving a government-contracted snowplow. After a pilot, it was announced in 2023 that for 5 years, roadside operators can utilize blue lights for safety. Warren, can you touch on kind of all of the above and how the blue lights have affected industry?
Yeah, so this is like we had worked a very long time. So what we have is a Highway Maintenance Safety Committee, and that's comprised of all the safety managers in the province. We have since actually expanded to which we have from other provinces as well as one out of the United States, out of Montana, that comes into our program. But one of the things, like it's probably been since about 2012 that we're working with the government of Alberta to do something different, because the amount of plow hits, the amount of workers being near misses or hit on Alberta highways was huge. I took over as the chair for that committee back in 2015, and I know how I've done from it, and we pushed, and it was, the government was always very receptive, but as with government, it always takes, there might be a new government coming in so that it gets put on the back burner, or or it just not going to work quite that way. But they always did work with us, which was a great thing. Finally, in 20, I think it was 2021, one of our contractors' employees was hit. He was out retrieving some debris off the highway, and anyway, he ran out to get it, lights flashing, everything, and a vehicle came up and hit him. Luckily for him, it was, well, luckily, not luckily, like he was in hospital for 3 months after that, that he survived. And I believe he still works for the company. But that was one thing that actually, I can honestly say, irritated us very, very much. So we actually went and had a good discussion with AT, very pointed, and they then started reacting, which was awesome. So in September of 2023, so I'll back up actually. So it was supposed to all come into play in February of 2023. And unfortunately, they weren't quite ready for that yet. But they, at that point, decided to go forward with the blue lights, which was always one of the things that we wanted. We wanted a distinctive lighting, per se, for highway maintenance vehicles. So with the committee and working with the government, we actually managed to get that. The government said, we will give you blue lights along with the tow trucks at that point as well. So like right off the bat, so in between October of 22 and I guess January or February of 23, we were in a pilot in which we had to get permits for them. And then when we actually got it, got to become a registrar's exemption off of it. So we run the lights. I can honestly say, if I look at our numbers right now, we're seeing a drop.
Awesome.
We absolutely are. If you look at, for example, the year of 22-23, there was a total of 48 plow trucks that were hit through all of Alberta. When you get to 2023-24, so what I do is the fall of 23, winter 24. And at that point, we had 35. So we had started getting the blue lights at that point. So far this year, although it's very frustrating, to say the least, to get 2 of your brand new trucks hit. So we've had, and keep in mind, this is a total for the Alberta contractors, we're a total of 18 this year of plow hits. And that, that can be rear enders, that can be wing hits. There's one that was a head-on collision with the plow truck. And so there's lots. And, as much as we always say, I can say that the transport industry has been very minimal in this. It kind of more goes to what we call the good old four-wheelers, right? That everybody's in a big rush to get anywhere. And we just want to just slow down, obey the light. If you see a fog coming in there, don't just drive into it. There's something in there.
Yeah, that standalone fog cloud on the highway is not a standalone, especially if it's moving, right? Because it'd be moving like 60 kilometers an hour.
I think there was, what was there, a Tom Cruise movie, a racing car. If you see the smoke, just drive into it.
Days of Thunder.
That's Days of Thunder. That's not what we want.
No. No, and to echo what you're saying, like I've had to pull stuff off the roadway too. I had to pull a barbecue that had splattered all over the bridge deck on Highway 2 over the Deerfoot over the Bow River down south of Seaton. And yeah, you're parked on the side of the road, your strobes are going, and you're eyeballing traffic because you know they do not see you. So you run out and you grab a door and you run back, and then you run out and grab a grill and you run back, and you're eyeballing it the entire time. It is human Frogger.
Oh, for sure it is.
And they don't see you.
And I think just to top that all off, since we've, like back in the day when I first started, just highway maintenance, and I was just a young kid, just wanting a regular job. I was out crack sealing on the highway, flagging, and there's one time that I got tagged with a mirror on the side. So didn't really do much of anything, but back then we didn't have the traffic counts. Back then we did not have cell phones. And I think one of the conversations I had with one of my foremen just on the way here is the issue. Like they turn and they can make eye contact with them. They're not making eye contact because they're actually looking down at their crotches.
Yeah.
You know,
we timely enough, we
hiding
just did a PSA on that. But it's the same thing, like you said, I had to pull some cones off the edge of the roadway on Stony. You don't turn your back to traffic when you're out there, especially in a rainstorm. Like it was my last shift. We had a downpour. I had to pull back the candlesticks off the edge of Stony Trail southbound. And yeah, you get out of the truck, you walk facing traffic, you drag it back, you go backwards to the truck facing traffic. Again, move over, give the guys a whole lane or more to work.
That's the most important thing. It just, even if you're not going to slow down, move over. Just give it that room. And if you're right beside us, slow down. And I'm just going to give a plug for the RCMP or law enforcement and fire and tow trucks as well, because they're the ones out there as well. And I don't know. I think I came by one of our guys this morning setting up signs, and I moved over and I still slowed down a little bit, but the guy right beside me blasted right by me, right? Faster guys. So it's one of the things we just want to keep our guys safe so they get home to see their families and
it's important to note that with the rule change in September 2024, when they did bring out the revised one, that the definition of emergency vehicle expanded to cover basically anything with strobes, because previously it was police, fire, tow, ambulance, and gas utility. And then when they rewrote it, it now includes road maintenance workers.
It does.
And that's the part that people don't seem to recall.
And then so we're clear, it's if you come upon a vehicle with strobes, just as we mentioned, and if you're in the lane immediately adjacent, it's 60 kilometers, correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Or, and preferable, change lanes.
Yeah, and move over. Now, it kind of goes into play a little bit more. So now these people that aren't allowing these people to move over can also be charged because failing to let them move over as well. So that was one good thing that the government brought in. Right at the bat, the government had actually wanted to put in all lanes shut, like slow down as you go by. I was never a proponent to that because, ultimately when you slow everything down, what happens? Rear-enders, right? So
yeah, I'm with you on that one. Because again, if you're northbound Stony, there's a couple spots like 114th Ave where it's 5 lanes. And then if you had somebody on that far right shoulder tow truck operator, let's say, hooking up, all 5 lanes are jamming on their brakes to 60 kilometers an hour, it's going to be chaotic.
Yes.
At best, right? So I get the idea. The idea was to encourage people to move over.
Yes.
Right. That was
Absolutely.
it. Here's your carrot. If you can go this faster if you're in this lane, come on over, right?
Yeah.
But if you can't, drop to 60 or less.
That's right. Absolutely. I was gonna just say we had a collision last February, where a plow truck was rear-ended, and it ended up, so he was plowing the passing lane and the passing lane shoulder. So he had a left-hand wing down, and so vehicle number 1 decides to go into the shoulder to go around him because he couldn't see the wing was down at that point. So he hits the wing. So at that point, our operator slows to get himself over onto the shoulder so we can make sure the guy's okay. And then he gets rear-ended by a transport at that point, and which did close to $200,000 damage to our truck, and that truck sat. And so these trucks are off the road now, right?
Yeah.
So they're not working. So I guess one of the things is what we talk about is just slow down. If there's something there, it's not necessarily a lane.
And don't
It's
pass
just
the
going-
truck in the direction it's pushing snow.
That's right.
Because I wasn't running left wing. We only had one left wing truck. Everything else was either no wing or right wing. But I was doing fast lane on Stony, trying to scrape the broken line into the ditch. And again, like you said, I had somebody go by me on the left side, on the left shoulder, and then phone in to complain that I cracked his windshield.
Yes.
Dude, don't pass on the median shoulder. It's pretty easy not to do.
I like your comment. Like, so actually in the driver's handbook, it says stay behind.
Yeah.
It says, so just stay behind. And then under some of the new legislation is if you pass a plow unsafely, you can actually be charged for that. And so there's 3 different charges when it comes to it. And for the most part, this year we've been actually really good with the law enforcement and in order to getting charges laid for these things. So
Good.
Anyway, sorry. I cut you
Oh,
off there.
no, by all means.
No, we went on a good path there. So we are recording this on January 27th, and especially in the Edmonton area lately, we've been seeing some black ice leading to jackknifed rigs and road closures. Warren, when we see weather like that or extreme snowfall, I hear some snowplows can come across vehicles in strange places. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So one of the things is that we're finding, and I had a good discussion with our foreman here as well. So what we're finding is sometimes if they shut a road down, for example, and one of the things some of the transport trucks are, because they get stopped there, they might be shut down. This one example actually happened on Highway 1, not far from Calgary, but they were shut down the highway and the transport trucks just shut down. It was apparently because they're over hours. So, and they said they couldn't start them to move them. So at this point, they're sitting right in the middle of the lane, and we're trying to get the road cleared so we get it. But they just crawl in their bunk and have a snooze. And so I guess if one thing is what we would like to see, if you can get yourself over, if you think you're getting close to your end of your time, or just get yourself over on the shoulder so we can clear that lane and get everything going. But yeah, we even had law enforcement in there trying as well to get them to move, but they said they couldn't because it shut down. So in the end, it all worked out. They were able to get them moved off, and everything was, everything was peachy keen. But we get even in those areas up in Edmonton, one of the things we just have to remember is we don't we can't be everywhere at once.
No, that's the big thing.
And it's our guys and gals try their darndest to make sure that they're out there, but sometimes it's you can be in one spot and all of a sudden it's tightening up in another area.
Yeah.
And like when I say tightening up, Rob would know what I'm saying. It just, you can sand it, and once it's been like diluted, the salt's been diluted, it'll refreeze. It actually refreezes harder than it was before. So it then creates more ice and all that stuff. So it's just be patient with us. We're trying. We're not out there not trying to get the road safe.
Absolutely. I was just looking up some numbers from the one snow event that really sticks out in my mind. I was trying to keep Deerfoot between basically the Okotoks overpass, just a bit north of that, to Mackenzie Town open by myself during the shift, because that was my route. And I just looked at my numbers. It was 45,500 kilos of sand I dumped on that stretch that night. That was 5 trips back to the sand tent, four and a bit trips back to the sand tent. So yeah, up and down, out of sand, go get more sand, up and down, and I could barely keep one lane open. So again, be patient, right? We're going to do the mains first. That's the thing. We hit the mains first. We're going to get, once that dies down or when the daylight comes out and, traffic's a little bit better after rush hour, then we'll start doing the ramps. Then we'll start touching up the overpasses. But again, if you see a plow truck, for example, on Deerfoot over Stony, and you've got that overpass, what we call the spaghetti bowl, the whole mixture of overpasses where Stony and Deerfoot all meet, and there's a plow going over the top of it, he's going to be doing 10, maybe 15 kilometers an hour because we can't launch snow over the bridge deck and down onto the road below you. It's frowned upon to launch snow onto vehicles doing 100 kilometers an hour below you. The government takes a very dim view of that.
Well, and then it causes damage to them. And we've had that happen a few times as well, right? So it's the exact same thing. We tell our guys, slow down, keep it down, try not to get too close to that edge, throw it over. But so it's kind of the same. Like even you get out what we call contract maintenance areas, the CMAs for short, and there's certain areas. So like down in the Lethbridge contract, we got 4 of them. Up in the Calgary contract, we have 3. And then we have the Northeast Anthony Henday, which is the P3. But yeah, it's in between all that, I believe. Now I'm gonna shoot it out, but I think we have 230 trucks, I think, something to that effect.
Yeah.
And then it's actually it's hard to keep all those things going. So anyway,
that's what I was going to get to too. Is expect the plow to slow down. To slow down.
Slow down.
Expect the plow to slow down. We're not supposed to back up, but they could be going a lot slower than you expect. They could have to go across the highway to pick up something else. So exercise caution. Plow trucks are big. They're going to be going slow. They're going to be pushing snow. You're going to be nearly impossible to see their taillights after a while. We put giant reflective stickers across the back, but again, when it's in its own cloud of snow, it's hard to see. So,
okay, let's stick with that. We've touched on snow plumes and we've touched on kind of sharing the road with snowplow users, but can we delve into that a little bit? What are the tips for road users when approaching a snowplow?
Okay, well, I guess just being aware. Snow's out there's snow on the road. Yep. They're going to be there. A good way to look, if you want to ever know where our plows are in Alberta, you can actually look on 511, and if you click the little button to show snowplows, it'll give you it's an approximate, but you'll know that there's a truck in that area at that point. So that's one way for you to watch. Being aware. Myself, I kind of have a little bit of a heads up because I have a 2-way radio and I also have a computer or a like on the app or whatever that I can see that they're in real time where they're at. But ultimately on the 511 app, it'll show you. But yeah, as we're going out there, it's like we've talked about staying behind the plow truck. If you pass, we have to shut that spinner down. So it's a kind of a 2-edged sword, right? So if you're coming by, we'll either slow it down or we'll shut it off. But if we shut it off, then it leaves that gap. So which then becomes an issue. It's sanded, then all of a sudden it's glare ice.
Yeah.
And then it's sanded and glare ice. And so you can go on. So what the guys will generally do is just slow it down and just keep it in that lane. However, at that point, it creates a hazard. So they will pull over every 5 to 8 kilometers or when safe to do so. If it's not safe for them to do it, like if the road's narrow or anything like that, they won't. A lot of times they might slow down to give you that opportunity to pass them at that point. So if they slow right off, that's generally a good sign at that, but just be on the lookout, be paying attention. And one of the things that we hear a lot of times when we get sanding claims that we're spreading rocks, like the rocks are on the road. So when it comes to sanding is sand. It's not rocks. It's the highest we use is 8 millimeter sand. So that's pretty tiny when it comes to it. It goes from anywhere 5 to 8 millimeter, depending on contracts, right? So yeah, there isn't rocks, but like a lot of times that stuff might come off of the plow, which we can't do anything about.
Chunks of ice are a big one too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right. I had a guy try to
Probably
pass
has.
me at an intersection while I was pushing. I probably launched 100 pounds of snow in his windshield.
Sure.
So again, don't pass on the side I'm plowing to.
Yeah, and that's right. And like even the plows are always angled to the right. They will angle them to the left if they're doing approaches or something, but or else if they're in this traveling or the passing lane on say Highway 2, they will angle it to the left at that point. So just keep it in mind that leading edge can push some snow at you, even though it's angled all the way. Move over, slow down. It's like guys a lot of times will find this just won't move over. Just move over, give us a little bit. We're cleaning that center lane so that when you hit it, you don't lose it and go into the ditch, right? So we will be on that yellow line, 100%. We will.
Well, it's another thing to watch out for too is when we started touching up the ramps, right? Like you said, if we're going up the left side of the ramp, we'll try to push everything to the left side of the ramp into the ditch. But if we're doing the gore strips, and for people who don't know what a gore strip is, it's that pointed piece of painted area to a ramp, either on ramp or off ramp, that has the chevron pattern on it. So we might go out late at night to clean those up after a snow event, and there might be 3 or 4 of us out doing it. But we're going to push all of that snow all the way across the ramp and into the far right ditch. So you be coming down Stony Trail. It's great. You start taking the ramp, and there is a wave of snow on it still because we haven't had a chance to get to it yet. So when crews are working, be prepared for the unexpected, right? It could be a ridge of snow a windrow that we haven't taken care of yet.
Yeah,
So.
100%. And that you catch that shoulder or you catch that little bit of that deeper snow, it's going to send you for a loop for sure.
Because you're still doing 70. It's like, roads are great. I'm going to do 70.
Great.
And then all of a sudden there's a berm of snow in front of you and you're into the weeds.
Yes.
I may have had that happen once or twice after a snow event where you see the people down in the ditch and, you're now doing the ramp after they've spun off the ramp into the ditch and you're clearing it off and laying down sand and waving as you go by.
I'll never forget back in my days when I was still with the government of Alberta and I worked out of the Bonnyville shop, and I always found to this day I love to get in a truck and see that get thrown out the right side. You see that rooster tail coming off it, but I'll never forget this one. It had rained and it was so icy and traffic behind me was just like they were staying because they couldn't go anywhere. Yeah. This one guy decided to pass me. It was so slippery that I'd actually went into the ditch because I was trying to turn around to go back to shop to get more. I went back to the shop and I got more sand and I came up. The guy was just a little bit further ahead where he was, which was about an hour later. And there he's in the ditch wanting help. Come back out. And I just said, sorry.
Did we learn anything about winter driving today, sir?
And at that point, he's like the whole leading funny story of it, like as he is driving by me, as I'm plowing snow out of the ditch so I can drive back out. Yeah. He was waving and laughing at me. So it was kind of a little bit of karma in play. But anyway, that's a long time ago.
Did you ever,
that's way too long ago.
I guess I had once or twice where you'd pull over to do your turnaround and they would just follow you onto the shoulder and sit behind you.
That too.
Just extra cautious.
Don't stare at the taillights of my truck.
Yeah, don't look at it. Don't follow me because you never know.
I don't know where I'm going
Where
either.
I'm going. Yeah, it's going.
So safe following distance, is that the rule?
That's a big one. Yeah.
Safe following distance.
Hang back because again, like Warren said, there's stuff coming off the blades, right? We don't intend to hit things, but sometimes ice chunks build up. You break an ice chunk free, and it goes flying. So again, where do you want to be? Do you want to be 10 meters back or do you want to be 100 meters back, right?
Stay back as far as you can. Absolutely.
And yeah, don't pass where the lights are blinking either. Because like we said with tow plow, we had a tow plow here as well, and it would swing to the right lane and it was lit up like a Christmas tree. And again, once it's into the snow fog or the big blanket of snow, don't go around it on the right-hand side.
I don't know if you've ever seen that. There's this one guy teaching you how to, is out of BC, teaching you how to act around a snow plow and tow plow. You see these blinky lights? Don't drive into them. Yeah. Drive away.
Stay away from the light.
Don't go to the light.
Noted. Go to the light. Yeah.
So on the topics of snow and vehicles hitting the ditch, I just want to touch on one quick thing with you, Rob. Can you cover a few tips and trips for road users in the event they may find themselves caught up in a ditch or on the highway during a storm?
Yeah, so basically prep first. The the last thing you want to do is find out in the middle of nowhere that you did not pack your winter boots or your coat. I mean, you don't need to wear your winter boots while you're driving if they're uncomfortable. But if you're packing a pair of Sorels in the back, or your extra heavy gloves, the extra heavy jacket on the back seat, great. A shovel, can get you out of a lot. So if you do get high centered into a snowbank, or you just off a little bit, you can dig yourself out, right? Winter tires are key in this province. It's not mandatory, but if you're doing any kind of highway driving in this province in the wintertime, winter tires are an exceptional purchase to make. Have some food with you, some slow release proteins would be good. Stay away from the sugary stuff. Like, as much as I love a chocolate bar, and as you can see, because now we have video, I do love chocolate bars. They are a peak energy burst, and then you're ready for a nap very shortly after. But something that's a slow release protein, nuts, trail mixes would be a good one. What am I thinking of? Jerky, also good too, right? But have a candle to keep warm, flashlights. I love watching people try to change a tire using their phone light. You can buy a headlight for $20. Toques, put your toque on, put your headlight on. It's so much easier out there.
I was going to just kind of touch on that. One of our employees, back when I was a foreman, he had truck had broke down, and I was at the far other end of the county, and it was like -30, -40 with the wind chill, and it was like, and the truck stopped. One of the things we always preach to our drivers: make sure you guys have extra clothes, and obviously they have lunches and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the time I got to him, he was pretty cold. He was bailing out of that truck just as fast so he could get in, so he could warm up. Um, it's a scary situation, and I'll just kind of relate another quick story that happened to myself. Is that I was 2 miles from my shop, and I could not see nothing at all. So I backed into the approach, and I sat there, and it was not clearing out. The wind was howling. You could not see anything. So I slept there that night.
Yeah.
When daylight came, then I was able to see where I was going.
And it's just 2 miles.
Yeah, 2 miles away.
And that's the thing to remember too, is, and coming out of oil and gas, is the trip necessary?
Yes. 100%.
And unless it's a medical emergency or whatnot, and even then, be cautious. Is the trip necessary, or can we postpone an hour, 6 hours, half a day, whatever? And also, to your point there with your driver, where the truck died on him, for the most part, stay with your vehicle, right?
Yes,
You're in the middle
100%.
of nowhere. You're trapped on the side of you slid off of a rural road that nobody's gone by you for hours. Stay with your vehicle. Don't try to walk, especially in a blowing snowstorm, because a lot of times they'll find the body 100 meters from the vehicle. You're going in circles. You couldn't find your way out. So stay with your vehicle. Stay out of the wind. You're easier to find.
100%. Agree.
So let's wind this down. We've covered a lot of information today, but Warren, is there anything that you'd like to add?
Well, I think we've covered everything that we could ever say, but we're out there for you, 100%. We want you to get to where you're going. We like Christmas time, Easter time, wherever it is. Any time of year, our guys are out there. Guys and gals are out there working hard. All I can really say is just, yeah, I guess be respectful. They're during the Christmas break, they're out there while their family's at home enjoying the Christmas without them, right? So I always look as we had one fatal once, and it's kind of a bothersome story, but it kind of the same thing. Drop a wheel off the edge and lose control and rolled, and he unfortunately passed away. But these guys are out so people can. It was New Year's Day, so people could get home safe to their families. So yeah, it's something that one of the things we just, and if you ever see, I post on social media quite often that we want to see you get there safely, but our employees want to make sure they get home safely as well for their family members. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to speak with this.
We're happy to have you here.
It's such a good thing. These discussions that we have, it's great.
Absolutely, and a great time to give a shout out to yourself, Warren, and your team. Destree and I have been fortunate to meet a bunch of them for a video that we did, YouTube plug for AMTA, and just the work that you guys do, and to our drivers everywhere for the commercial vehicles. Just props to you guys for everything.
Thanks.
Mr. Destree, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah. So again, just to tack on to what Kelsey said, we did do a safety video with Warren's team earlier last year, where we talked about snowplow safety. So part 2 was we went out with a driver, and so it's on our YouTube channel. And to add to what Warren said, they're out there trying to make sure the road's open for motorists. Be patient. They're not there to hinder you. They're there to clear the roadways and make sure everybody's safe. That's it.
That's a great comment. 100%.
Warren, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to quickly break down some AMTA news. Now, as we've been talking about for the last while here, is clearly we have weather events in Alberta. It is very important to be alert on the road, and why not take that diligence one step further and join us here at AMTA in taking the pledge against distracted driving. We'll put some details in our show notes below, and it's on our website as well, but we really encourage you to participate. As well, we are 50% sold out for our annual conference taking place April 8th to 10th at the River Cree Resort and Casino. Details are also in the show notes and amta.ca. And finally, if you haven't heard of it yet and have a driver who has gone above and beyond to the max, be sure to nominate them for AMTA's new initiative, Angels of the Highway. Do you have any questions or comments about the Steering Change episodes? Please reach out on our Instagram at AMTA_CA or LinkedIn and Facebook at Alberta Motor Transport Association. Stay safe and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of AMTA's Steering Change Podcast. The views expressed by guests of the Steering Change Podcast are their own and may not reflect the views of AMTA, its hosts, or sponsors. Do you have a question that you would like answered on an upcoming episode of the Steering Change Podcast? We want to hear from you. To submit a question to the Steering Change mailbag, hit up our DMs on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram with the hashtag Steering Change, and your question will be answered either live on the podcast or by one of our SMEs here at AMTA. We ask that you share this episode with those in your network that could benefit from what we discussed today, and make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform so you can be notified when future episodes are released. You can learn more about us and our mission by visiting www.amta.ca. Now get out there and have a safe day.